I found
Sure, as you're starting to fatigue, you still get that gap of slack.
So depending on how far along you are, there does become naturally less space for ladder to expand and fill. But if you're only noticing it during cardio, I would wonder if you're holding too much abdominal tension. So when we contract the abdominal wall, we also get a co-contraction of the pelvic floor, which, as a side note, is why ab gripping is bad for your pelvic floor. When you hold your belly in all day, you hold your pelvic floor, we create tension, we get a pelvic floor that doesn't move with breath. So I challenge you to release some of that tension if it's unnecessary during cardio. We don't need to have a rigid belly. We need to be able to move and practice that 360 breathing. And it's counterintuitive, but see if you notice releasing that releases the pelvic floor and therefore less of that feeling of the need to go.
I have not heard that before. It makes logical sense that you just want to maintain that surgical integrity and have that extra support. There is a higher failure rate. I guess my overall would be like, obviously still learning pressure control. Like it's never just a pessary, it's like pessary plus pressure control, conservatively managing. So I think that would just be like an individual person's like learning in their body how well they're managing pressure control, and if they feel comfortable continuing to use a pessary even after surgery, just to make sure they're maintaining that. It's not a bad idea. It's actually a very like conservative, well-meaning suggestion. I could see how someone would be like, wait a second, I just got surgery. But I think that is also a testimonial to the fact that like surgery is not fail-proof. Yes, the sacrum is what is called a mixture of form and force closure. Form would be the bony alignment in relation to the ilium, so the two sides of your pelvis, and then the force closure is the strength that's created by the muscles, ligaments, and tendons surrounding that area. So it can always be one of two issues usually if you're dealing with something like that. But if there is too much tension in the pelvic floor, it's going to pull that tailbone forward and under typically. So too much tension there, and then the tailbone directly connects to the sacrum, as well as the fact that the pelvic floor works together with the abdominal wall, the multifidi, and the diaphragm as a canister together. So having a weak link somewhere in that core canister can translate to issues of stability, often in the lumbar spine or SI issues. Yeah, 100% pelvic floor foundations is for a beginner, starts from a beginner fashion, with the assumption that you have no idea about breathing or don't know where to start in troubleshooting that. So it's all about making sure the rib cage is moving, we're breathing into the rib cage, working on very specific restorative breath positioning, as well as overall mobility for the thoracic, lumbar, spine, and hips, because we have to have everything moving in order to be able to truly affect the pelvic floor with our breath for both length and strength. So definitely for a beginner. On the flip side, I also wanted to address for those who are higher level who might kind of cringe at the idea of this slow beginner. This program is still for you. If you are struggling at a higher level, what's your missing link? And unless you're seeing somebody in person who's going to directly identify, like, here's your issue, you have to figure that out. And maybe it is your rib cage mobility and your breathing and your ability to identify some of those things. And so sometimes the hard things we need to do in life are slowing down and doing the things that we're kind of resisting, but that are really good for us. So you always got to check in with your rib cage and some of that stuff before you can take off. So with that said, also created a quiz where if you have some background in pelvic floor and core rehab, you can take that to see where in the program maybe you can start and then kind of grow from there. Lots of questions about membership and launching and stuff, so I definitely want to roll through those too because I haven't done a Q&A on that in a while and we're getting super close to it. So want to make sure you got all the details. May 28th is our planned launch date. We talked to the app side of things yesterday.
and we think it's going to be close, but we think we should be able to make that date still. As well as Apple approves everything through the Apple Store, it should be a good go. So May 28th, if that changes, I'll let you know. Yes, so essentially, I just am reminding you all the time to monitor your symptoms to help gauge readiness for progression to the next step. And hopefully you glean a lot of insights from the education portion for getting to the root cause of your issues, and then improvement in the pelvic floor down training before you get to anywhere that might provoke any symptoms at all. So hopefully that starts to improve that. But I also want to point out that as part of the membership, I'm going to go live twice a month. I want to offer that personal support. Yes, this is a generalized program, but for people who are hitting roadblocks or might have questions, I want to be able to continue to help guide you to certain things that you might need to focus on so that you get the best results. So there's also that if you're kind of struggling and unsure of those things, that you can approach me and ask me. It is going to be a subscription. There's 4 programs at time of launch, which is 12-week pelvic floor foundations, 6-week return to running, 6-week advanced fitness, and 4 weeks of advanced core. And then shortly after we launch, we are going to roll out Connect daily workouts. So you can maintain all of your gains. And if you love the workouts you see me do all the time on my own, it's kind of akin to that, because we would have learned all of those things together to build back to that level and keep you maintaining all of those things from your pelvic floor perspective. So it's a membership. Get on the wait list though. You don't have to buy if you're on the wait list, but you certainly will miss out on the discount link that we are sending out to everybody, the code to save, because we are only doing an exclusive deal for that at time of launch, which would be like less than $9 a month for you for a year. So with Prolapse overall, it doesn't matter the activity, it's more the idea of the ability to control pressure well so that you're not symptomatic during or after that exercise. Because you are newly learning about this, I would highly suggest learning to understand in your body what pressure control looks like and understanding that to apply to yoga. I love yoga. It's so good for you and has so many benefits for your pelvic floor just inherently in the movements. But if you're lacking that understanding of pressure control, even something that is low impact can have an effect on that. So I would just learn that ability to inhale, lengthen, exhale, lift from the bottom and blow off that pressure, because that's going to be important in other things like any core work in yoga or downward facing dog and those things. But diastasis exercise is understanding pressure control, which we can see as doming and coning or bread loafing. So either when that midline is popping out or the rectus is popping out, that bread loaf appearance, like your six pack is bulging, that TA isn't drawing in and creating that tension to pull across the midline. And that's what's going to further create weakness along that midline if you continue to push pressure out. So it's really learning what that is in your body. And then when you're exercising, it's not entirely staying away from movements that provoke that, but it's really working that fine line and that threshold. When it starts to happen, that's your challenge point you really need to work at to continue to progress. So I'm doing a double leg lower. I feel my midline bulging. Can I exhale a little bit harder and pull that in, or go to that place just before that happens to further create strength and improve that?